now from Broadway to international affairs, back to Broadway. Rex Reed called her too beautiful to be taken seriously and then went on to do just that in a rave review of her highly acclaimed performance at the Rainbow and Stars. Right now she's playing Broadway in the Will Rogers Follies. We're very pleased to have Susan Anton join us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Let me just say for a second is that Rex Reed wasn't the only person. Stephen Holden in the New York Times, yes, they all said, and I think what was interesting about it, this was what, 1990 when you did this, when you came
last year, right.
What seemed to me was that it was like they didn't know what to make of you, and everybody, all these critics saw it, and they said, wow, she can sing. And she can sing rhythm, and and she has a certain what?
It's interesting. I don't know where we developed this idea in our culture that,
if you're tall and
people
blonde,
look a certain way, then they can't be capable of other other things. So we've always been disproving that throughout history, and there's this stereotypical dumb blonde idea that people have going too that has been busted 1,000 times over. But it's kind of a nice little bit of ammunition, because when people aren't expecting anything, then you can really surprise them with something very easily.
Yeah.
So it's worked to my advantage, though sometimes it gets a little frustrating. And in the singing department especially, because I really do sing rhythm and blues. Obviously in the Will Rogers Follies I'm not, because it's Broadway, but my natural, my organic sense is very rhythm and blues, and I don't know where that comes from. I do too.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the heritage in the South and in places like Memphis and Kansas City.
It's just primal, I just believe that art is from the gut.
Yeah.
And if it connects there, then you're going to communicate a feeling and an emotion to an audience that's waiting to feel it as well.
Now, were you nervous about this? I mean, you have been performing and been singing before, but you've had some things that didn't work out so well on television series and all of that, as many performers have. Were you nervous about coming into New York?
Oh, yes. Well, it was interesting, because when I decided to come in last year to play the Rainbow Room, I knew that I was turning 40. It was a real landmark year for me.
And you made a point of telling people.
Yes, I did.
And even included in your act.
It was a declaration of independence, because I think that that's another cultural conversation, that men and women are really struggling finding their way now to communicate with each other. The whole Capitol Hill thing was very interesting with Clarence Thomas, and the fire that conversation ignited in the public was clear that it's time for men and women to sit down and have some great, clear communication.
So many women said during those weeks, you just don't get it to us men. You just don't get it. Right?
You don't. I was walking the other day home from the theater, and it's just there's a low-grade sense of harassment that exists in the culture, because men just saying things as you walk by, and you have to almost like bite your tongue as a woman, because I'm afraid to say things for fear that it might instigate some kind of a further complication that I don't want to get entangled in. So anyway, getting back to the Rainbow Room, I was turning 40. It was a real declaration of my womanhood, because I had my own voice now, and it was time to really stand for myself. And so I decided to come to the most difficult city of all to to do that, and that was New York. And just took it on, and it was a thrill.
Did that lead to this? Was there any connection between?
No connection. Other than, I think, in an internal sense in my self-esteem, and the real, and wanting to constantly raise the stakes and play a bigger game and a bigger game and a bigger game. So I think that natural progression was, when you decide to throw yourself in a bigger arena, then bigger games come your way. So I think it was natural.
Even George Bush once said that getting in the ball game is 85% of the
Absolutely.
Of the result.
Anybody can stand on the sides and cheer you on, but it takes some, to get in the game and play, get on the court. So I think life is about getting on the court and always making promises. If you're fulfilling all your promises, then they're not big enough. And it's got to be more than about your career. It's got to be, that's why it's such a pleasure being in the Will Rogers Follies, because I have such admiration for what this man was about. It was not about his career. It was not about his life, his, this little existence. It was about humanity. And so humanity embraced him and was hungry to hear truth.
And interesting, as the Will Rogers Follies points out, and any student of Will Rogers finds out quickly, what he said is as applicable today in many cases as it was back then when he said it.
Charlie, it was so funny, because last night Gerald Ford and Henry Kissinger were in the audience. And then tonight Ron Reagan was in the audience. So it was very interesting.
Ron Reagan as in former president.
As in former President Ronald Reagan and Nancy, Mrs. Reagan. And it was very interesting, because there's a lot of political humor, obviously, in the show. And there's one exchange between myself, I play a news reporter, and Keith Carradine, who plays Will Rogers magnificently. And I'm asking him, you know, would you consider running for president? And he says something to the nature of, well, we might have almost anybody run for president, but we haven't quite sunk into the level of actor yet. And so tonight, with former President Reagan in the audience, it was a very interesting moment. And so Keith handled it beautifully. And he said, I can't help it, Ron, that's what I said in 1926. You know, and it got a huge laugh. So you see how timely what he said.
Could you see him in the audience yourself?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and so you could see his reaction as you're performing, or when you're not on stage, or when you don't have a speaking part at the time.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time watching you to see, and so does the audience.
And he was laughing, and
they were having a great time.
Did they come backstage, or did you have a
Yes,
chance?
they came backstage.
What did they say?
And just they complimented the entire cast, and they stood patiently for quite a length of time and had pictures taken with almost everybody, including the dog act. and former President Reagan was very gracious about putting on cowboy hats, and Nancy said that he was quite at home with that, you know, because of the ranch. Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be back on Broadway? The last time you were here was what, Hurly Burly? With
Hurly Burly.
You replaced Candice Bergen?
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I didn't know until I was actually in rehearsals that this is probably one of the most significant moments as far as my career is concerned, because when I became infatuated with the idea of being in the entertainment business, I was a little girl and I fell in love with musicals on television. And musicals generally were always about Broadway and playing the Palace. And I think that was my childhood dream that made me want to go into this business. And I'd forgotten that because through the years of, struggle and accomplishments and disappointments and so on, you kind of get a tough exterior to survive, and you forget that vulnerable child that exists inside you that enables you to really want something.
And this does what? I mean, this makes you...
It's my childhood dream, and I'm completely vulnerable, and I realize that at the age of 41 now, that my childhood dream has come true. And when I walk down those stairs in that opening number and I look out and I'm playing the Palace, I just look up and I say, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a gift. It's a great gift, and I'm having the best time.
Is it easy to say this is the happiest time in your life?
Yeah, it really is. I've never felt so full of possibilities. Life is just a succession of endless possibilities.
Was there ever a point in which you thought you weren't going to make it in terms of what your own dreams were? You mentioned earlier, make sure that if you reach all of your dreams, then you're not dreaming high enough. Was there a moment in which you said, this career is not working out the way I want it to be, and you weren't going to get on track?
There's been times when I would get I think because my thinking just was too small. I was taking it all too personally, and I felt that there was some kind of a time clock, like a 24-second clock, and you better get the shot off or you're never going to get your chance. And life just isn't lived that way.
Did you create those chances yourself by grabbing hold of your life and saying, if I'm going to have the chance, I better do it myself?
I think so. I think it has to be the individual. It has to instigate it. And I just realized that I'd gotten in a complacent place. I'd gotten to that place where I was keeping everything safe. And it was very, this.
You could go on just being a celebrity almost.
Yeah, and it was not alive. It was passionless. There's this wonderful saying that you can go to the amusement park and you can ride the merry-go-round, which goes round and round, or you can ride the roller coaster, which, I'd rather ride the roller coaster any day. Yeah. And
this, I don't know the answer to this, but where was it because you picked up the phone and said, I would love to play? When she leaves, what was her name, the actress?
Katie Huffman.
Katie Huffman. When she leaves this part, I, Susan Anton, would like to come in, at least test for it, give me a chance. I promise you I can do this. Is that the conversation?
I didn't instigate it myself. I have to really acknowledge my manager, Jack Stein, who has believed in me all along, who's incredible, and he got wind of the fact that she was leaving the show to go and do a film.
And he comes to you and says, would you be interested?
And he said, would you be interested? And my gut reaction was yes, and I immediately thought, but, so I started to protect myself against any kind of disappointment, well, maybe it wouldn't be right. And then I realized that I wanted to full out want it. Yeah. And I decided that I did, and everything just led to that. They were going to, they said, well, come in. So I flew in and I auditioned. You had to read or
test or audition?
I did. I had to learn a dance number. I'm not a dancer, but Patty DeBeck taught me, and I danced and I sang, and Cy Coleman and Adolph Green and Betty Comden and Peter Stone and all the producers, everybody was there. Yeah. It was on the stage at the Palace, and I finished my audition, and they said, okay, great, when can you start? Now.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
And how many? And was it hard to prepare for it? Was it
It was
difficult?
It wasn't difficult because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and
it was a labor of love.
Absolutely, and it was very, very fast. I learned the entire part in a week and a half, and it was nonstop learning. And I've only been in it now 4 performances.
The dancing was the hardest?
Dancing's the hardest because I'm not a trained dancer, and I feel like I'm out there, you know, tapping my little tootsies
and
off.
Has it opened new vistas for you? Do you now think of yourself in a different way, or think of the possibilities have expanded for what Susan Anton can do?
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any end in sight. I don't think that there's any end to anybody's potential. It just, you know, the more people see you, the more ideas that can be, you know, created from it. I would love to have my own musical. I would love to do that, you know? Yeah.
And each night, it's different for you.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of live theater, is that you get to recreate over and over and over again. I used to think, being a variety performer, that doing the same thing over and over again would be just awful, you know, because I liked the freedom of always being spontaneous. But to be able to discover new things in the same arena every night really allows you to grow.
And do you some nights say, I wasn't as good tonight as I was last night?
I do. I try not to buy into that conversation too much.
You just say, oh, forget about it.
Yeah, because I believe that it's all in being, you know, that you have a place to contribute from whoever you're being at that moment.
Much success to you. Thank you for
you.
joining us.